Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. So I want to pick up where we left off yesterday and be sure that I clarify what we talked about in that, particularly looking at this Jeremiah 29:11, that God's plans and thoughts for us are the exact opposite of the enemy's desires. John 10:10 tells us that the enemy comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus said, but I have come that they might have life and have that life more abundantly. And so God's thoughts and plans for us basically are the Garden of Eden. Like if you go back and you look before man messed it up, when God said it is good, that was God's plan. And so he has sent Jesus to bring us back into right standing with him so we can get his mission accomplished like it was in the beginning. But I said yesterday that God's plans for us are of peace. His thoughts for us are of peace and welfare, to give us hope, a future of success, and plans to take care of us. They are not plans of abandonment, plans of harm, plans of evil, or plans of suffering. Now, the suffering is the point that I want to discuss just a little bit today, because I understand that there is a contention among people whether or not God calls us to suffer or God wants us to suffer, because the Bible talks about persecution and suffering. And here's what I want to make very, very clear. The suffering and the persecution that the Word talks about us being called to is for the namesake of Jesus Christ. That is not suffering with sickness and disease and lack. Because the Word tells us that Jesus came and gave himself. We can go to Isaiah, read it from the Word. You can read all the miracles in the gospel. If it was God's plan and intent for mankind to suffer sickness, then Jesus never would have healed. And there are countless miracles in the gospels recorded where Jesus healed. And then John tells us at the end of his gospel that were they all to be recorded. And see, Jesus ministered for 3 years, right? 3 years, 3.5 years. If every miracle that Jesus ever performed were to have been recorded, there would not be enough pages to contain them. Think about that. Just in the time and duration of his ministry, he did so many miracles at the bidding of the Father, because the Word also tells us in John 8 that he does nothing except what the Father tell him to do and what he sees the Father do. So the Father's heart was for these miracles to take place. And in Isaiah, we have to settle these things within ourselves, because if we have a mind, if our mind is made up in opposition to the Word, we're going to have a really hard time seeing God's plans and purposes come to pass in our life, because we have determined something different than the Word. But Isaiah 53 tells us that Jesus has borne our griefs, our sicknesses, our weaknesses and distresses, and carried our sorrows and pains of punishment. Yet we ignorantly considered him stricken, smitten, and afflicted by God, as if with leprosy. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our guilt and iniquities. The chastisement needful to obtain peace and well-being. Did you hear those words? Those same words of God's plans for us are good and for our well-being and for our welfare. The reason that we can expect those plans of God to come to pass in our life is because of this right here. But he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our guilt and iniquities, and the chastisement needful to obtain peace and well-being for us was upon him. And with the stripes that wounded him, we are healed and made whole. See, Jesus took all of that suffering upon himself, because let me tell you this, people, it should have been my place. He took my place. He took my place. He took his place, because if I had been the one to die, it would have done nothing. But because he was the one that died, it changed everything for all time, for all of mankind. We have to stop today, but we'll pick up here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.